His presentation. So you're going to hear the second story of how young people, so you heard from Pakistan and moving into West Africa, where you can hear from young people, despite the challenges and the risks they face, they're actually taking a different path and choosing a different message to convey. So Abdulsalam, over to you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to be here and share with you the story of the Ppf project. I get so much passionate when I speak about the Ppf project because for me it is a story of peace, it is a story of passion, story of commitments, and a story of the young people in Ghana, about 30 of us that have been so much committed to prevent situations that we are seeing in other parts of the world, like Pakistan and everywhere in West Africa, Nigeria, Boko Haram, and what have you. So our peace building activity is actually that of proactiveness. I've seen many people ask me, Ghana doesn't have so much conflict, there is no terrorism in Ghana, so why are you into peace building? Many of my colleagues in the hospital where I work ask me, you are a nurse, why don't you concentrate on your nursing job and you're so much thinking about peace building? But the thing is, peace is so important. I grew up in a very large family where I have about 32 siblings. Just imagine, 32 siblings. And I had little experience of my father because I was barely 6 years when he died. And imagine one father having 32 children, and beyond the 32 children, our house was like an open house where we had almost everybody who come into our house to learn and what have you. So we experienced so much conflict within the family. But I can say to you that my family today in Ghana or in our community is one of the families that is still together, regardless of all these conflicts that we have. And then I started to do an introspection. Why? We have all these conflicts, serious conflict that I cannot even share here, but we are still together. So I realized that there was one uniting factor. Our father was a religious leader, and then he created for us every single day opportunities to meet, regardless of which other nuclear family you belong to. We met every day to eat together. We met almost regularly to discuss issues together. So that became the foundation upon which we are still united up to today, because those rituals, we consistently do that. So from this, I realized the importance of building institutions, regardless of the difficulties and the conflict we have. If we have institutions and avenues that bring people together, you can get the people united. So I'm motivated by that story. So PPF basically is an acronym. It's not an institute, it's not an organization, it's a movement. Our objective was to make a change. So we needed no organization, what we needed was passion. P represents past, the second P represents present, and the last F is future. Now look at these three words. It tells you how big the vision was for a young person like me in my early 20s to have a vision, wanting to look at the past of Muslims in Ghana, to review the current, present challenges we are facing in Ghana, and to provide recommendations for the future. That was quite a very big vision. But to understand this project, I need to tell you the background story, what led me into peace activism in Ghana. It's quite very passionate, because in 2006 I was admitted into the University of Ghana, Legon, where I was offered admission to study nursing. So for the first 1.5 year of my education, college education, I made distinction in every single subject that I studied. I was a very good student in class. But after the first 1.5 year, my attention moved from academics to social work, to peace building. So many of my colleagues in class were like, what is happening to you? You still don't make the distinctions that we know you to be making. But I add so much joy so much gratification in what I was doing beyond the academics at that point. Now, what led me to peace building in Ghana is quite a very passionate story. Now, as you can see this building, this is a building in one of the colleges, high school in Ghana called Abdulsalam College. Now, on 16th March 2008, something quite unfortunate, quite traumatic happened in our educational institution, in this school, to be specific. Now, this young boy there is called Mustafa Abdul. Very brilliant young Muslim student. His passion and ambition was to become a medical doctor, and he was in his last year to complete high school. If Mustafa Abdul had lived, per my calculation, he would be graduating from the medical school this year. But Mustafa Abdul died because he was a Muslim. He died because as a Muslim, he wanted education. And in many of our educational institutions in Ghana, we have a serious challenge where Muslim students are being forced to Christian church service. So on this particular day of 16th March 2008, it was a Palm Sunday. Mustafa Abdul was being forced to attend church service together with his colleagues, and then he refused, and then went to hide into this very particular story building you are seeing. So there are various narrations of the story. One narration says, as he was being pursued by the housemaster, Mustafa Abdul jumped from the red spot onto the floor, and then he died instantly. From other perspective, especially as it was narrated by his colleague student and the Muslim perspective, the narration was that he was being pushed by the housemaster, who was pursuing them and punishing every single student who refused to attend Christian church service. Whatever narration you would like to take, the most important thing is that Mustafa Abdul fell from that third-story building onto the ground and he died instantly. Why should Abdul die? Because he's a Muslim. Why should he die? Because he wanted education. So that was the issue. And this issue quickly became viral in our communities. And every single Muslim student could actually relate to that because we all had our own experiences. It was because of some of these reasons that our parents and of the older generation refused some of us and of that time to actually go to secular education and what have you. And in Nigeria, for example, these were some of the foundations upon which Boko Haram was built, because they felt the educational system was built to actually westernize and Christianize people. So it was a very difficult moment, but let me just sound a caution. I don't want you to see this story as the Christian community in Ghana is hostile to Muslims or is discriminating consciously against Muslims. That is not the case. The relationship between Muslims and Christians in Ghana is very fantastic. But this is a social problem we had because of colonization. This is a direct consequence of the educational system that was handed over to Ghana. So the situation was very difficult. There was tension all over in our communities. In the very school that Mustafa Abdul was at Abdulsalam College, his very own colleagues and students, Christians and Muslims, started vandalizing things because they felt there was injustice. Communities, there was tension all over. Now, this single event could have turned Ghana into a very violent spot. But it was this story that brought some of us into peace activism. I was then one of the leaders of the Muslim students in the capital city. So very much of us, young people who are heading Muslim students organizations across the country, started nonviolent peace activism. We're creating platforms for Muslim students, for Muslim organizations, Muslim communities to kind of bring out their grievances without necessarily using violence. So we started writing press statements, press release. We were doing all we could to bring out the issues to bear without necessarily resorting to violence. And I can tell you that as I speak with you here, almost about 8 years, that problem has not been totally resolved in our educational institutions, but we have succeeded as a nation, both Christians, Muslims, in holding ourselves together, not to allow this single issue to lead our community into violence. So I was very much active in the process of this issue. Now, this is exactly a year after Abdulsalam died. I was very, very, very much active. I wanted to ensure that I could do whatever I could to ensure we have a good solution. So we organized a peace march that was in front there to the presidency to bring to bear the issues. And every year on 16th March 2008, we created platforms that brought people who are in the educational institution, Christians, Muslims, all together to see the way forward. And getting into this, I had a bigger scope. I realized that part of the reason why we have not been able to resolve this issue is not because the Constitution does not guarantee it. Chapter 5, Article 21 of our Constitution guarantees freedom to belong to any religion, to manifest it. Article 21 of our Educational Act says it clearly that you cannot force anybody to attend church service or any religious instruction against his wish. So all the laws supported the Muslim students. But why is it that was my question I was asking myself whilst I was doing the introspection in the course of this struggle. Why is it that we've not been able to achieve that? So I came to the conclusion from my experience that the problem was because the Muslim society, the Muslim community was not organized. Because during that time, some of us were on radio talking, kind of giving solutions, and we had different opinions. The Muslim society was unable to present a very unified opinion of this is what we want, this is the solution. And it's because the Muslim society was very much disorganized. We had the best people in terms of human resource. We had very wonderful people, we had lawyers, we had academicians and what have you, but we still were not able to resolve this issue when the Constitution, the Educational Act was very clear on it. So from there, I realized that the bigger problem we had was the disorganization and the disunity that is within the Muslim community. And from that time, I never looked at the small picture. I was not concerned about the distinctions I make in class. I was not concerned about my profession. I was not concerned about anything. I was concerned about looking at the bigger picture. Hence, PPF, the past. So I wanted to do an historical research of Islam and Muslim community in Ghana to see what events and antecedents has led us to where we are. And like she mentioned, it's pretty clear there are issues of disunity based on sects within the Muslim community. So it was quite a very difficult dynamics for a young person like me to want to make that your ambition. I remember when in 2008, when I had that vision that no, what we needed to do is to look at the bigger picture, see how best we can reorganize and re-engineer the Muslim society, identifying the various stakeholders that exist and create a system that will unite us as well as put us on a platform to make a very good impact. I approached one of the persons I call my mentor. I love him so much. I love his activism, and then I narrated this vision to him. And then the person told me that, young man, we have attempted this several times before and it didn't work. So the best thing for you to do, concentrate on your education. If you want to do something for your community, you can probably go organize some young students and then teach them something. That is better. You can measure it. It's achievable. This is probably not achievable. But I can tell you today, with consistency, with commitment, with passion, I have achieved, or the PPF project has achieved significant part of our objective, and I will share that with you. Now, this is the journey of the PPF project. I worked for 20 months in the hospital without salary, because in our part of the world, it takes a long time if you are employed for you to receive your first salary. So the very first time I received my salary, I used the money to sponsor very young people who were passionate, who believed in the fact that we needed to look at the bigger picture. And we started moving. And I am quite privileged and very humble to say that if you go into the annals of history, there is no single historical research within the Muslim community that really looked at the bigger picture. I spoke to Muslim researchers, I read their books, and nobody had that vision of ensuring to visit every single Muslim community in Ghana, to try consciously to speak to every Muslim sect in Ghana. There was no doubt that realization did not exist, but that was my vision. And we have achieved that. We've spoken to over 250 Muslim leaders, Muslim imams, Muslim scholars, representatives of Muslim organizations across the 10 regions of Ghana. That is very unprecedented. So that was the journey. And we did this with our own money. The very first day we went out to interview one person. That man is a politician. So I spoke with him, I told him this is our vision. We want to visit the entire 10 regions of Ghana, to have interviews, conduct research, speak to scholars, speak to imams. So we are starting with you. All we needed is to have an interview with you and then just get your commitments, a pledge of unity on what we call a pact paper. Now this man did not respond to the interview, he didn't write his message. He was concerned about whether that vision could be achieved. So he told me, we are politicians and we know how much it costs to travel across the 10 regions of Ghana. And I know you're a student. You just completed and kind of starting to work. You don't have resources. Why do you want to struggle to do this? I said, understand me, but all we needed was your message. And I can tell you that after we went around and we were coming to launch our project, that same person felt so proud to have written his message because we had achieved that vision. So for me, it's about passion. It took me, for the first 5 years, from 2008 to somewhere around 2013, I had only one person who believed in the vision. There was only one person who believed in it, who was kind of assisting me to go out to do the interviews, and then he was recording. Many people listened to me, but they never really believed in the vision until 2013, when I got almost about 30 young people. I was able to articulate. So anytime someone didn't believe in the vision, I told myself, maybe I did not explain well enough to the person. So now this is the journey. Now in the course of our journey, we realized, apart from the fact that we were disorganized as Muslim society based on our sects and the challenges we were faced with, we had a very unique, important problem. Very critical. That was the position of the National Chief Imam. Now, you may not know about that position, but somewhere around 1980, the Ghanaian community realized there was proliferation of religious groups and organizations, and therefore there was a law, PNDC Law 221, that requested all religious organizations to actually register and select one leader that can be identified. So there's a long story to that, but by 1993, it became very clear. We had a position called the position of the National Chief Imam. And this position, the person speaks for the entire Muslim community of Ghana, regardless of which sect you belong. And that position is quite important because it is a position that is well respected in the society. And it is also quite important because of the first person to occupy that position. His leadership skills was amazing. He was loving, he was caring, he was forgiving. So it made that position a very respectable position. But in the course of our research, we realized that we have a problem. And that problem is that we do not have a succession to that office. There is no plan to indicate if the National Chief Imam is not there, what are the procedures, inclusive procedures by which we will select other imams. And I can tell you that issue is an issue of national security concern. In 2008, just 3 months to our elections, we lost a sitting president, but it was never a problem. Just within a day, we were able to have a new president because there was a succession plan. Now, this is one single issue that if we do not get it right in Ghana, it can be the potential reason for violence. And I know and pray with the work we have done, we'll be able to prevent that. But that is quite how important that issue. And every community, every person we meet kept saying, we have a time bomb. The national chief imam is 97 years. And there is no succession plan. And every single Muslim community, based on sex, based on ethnicity, everybody wanted to occupy that. And people are actually planning their own evil machinations behind the scene and hoping that the society will continue in that way without any plan for the national chief imam to demise, and then they can use the conflict situation to actually achieve whatever they wanted to achieve. So our project was proactive because we followed them, we got them on video, we got them on audio to give us their opinions, their suggestions, and we came back, organized a 10-day workshop, invited key Muslim scholars to assist us, analyze the issues, and then we put a project report, and we were able to present the report. So what we did was to stimulate national discourse. As I am here, I was called by some of our PPF members, and I was told that currently there is a serious discussion around some of these issues back in Ghana. And that was our objective. Our objective was to stimulate national discourse so that some of these things, and so as you can see, we were presenting the reports to the national chief imam, the imam of Ali Sunnah, the imam of Shia. And this, I call the PPF project the project of hope because of this day. This is when I did a presentation to the Muslim caucus of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. When we came initially, they said they had only 30 minutes. But when I started to talk about the issues, they gave me 2 hours. And when I finished my presentation, telling them the structures and what we have been able to gather in the course of our research, and this is the solution, this is what we could do to reorganize, to re-engineer the Muslim community, every single person of them felt hopeful that this is an issue that they were thinking about, but they never knew where to begin. So it's a story, it's a project that gave hope to many Muslim community and Muslim personalities. Now, this is one very fantastic project we did in the course of the PPF project, because we knew that we needed to work on the unity of Muslims. If you want to create any structure, any institution that will work, you need to work on the unity. Now, this is what we call a pact on unity and future of Muslims in Ghana. Now, all the people we met, we gave them, after having interviewed with them, we give them this pact paper, and then we ask them to commit, to do a pledge of unity. In the Islamic sense, we call it al-Ibayan, kind of pledge that I am standing for unity. So this is quite significant. All the key Muslim leaders we have in Ghana, we met them, and all of them have written their messages and have pledged to work for unity. And so symbolically, this document serves as a pledge of unity for Muslims. But more importantly, for the bigger picture, like I was talking about, it serves as the biggest referenced manuscript for Muslims in Ghana, where part of our vision is to analyze the messages and see what is common with people. Say, for example, the imams, all the imams that have written their message. What is common in the message? What lesson can we draw out of that message? What is common for the Muslim chiefs? What is common for Muslim youth? What is common for Muslim professionals? And that can serve as the basis for very good planning in the Muslim community. Now, this is the last media activity I did. This is a public, one of the well-renowned TV stations, TV3. And this is a program that is very popular in the Ghanaian Muslim setting. Now, there was this issue we had worked about, became very important this year, because we had a problem, and the National Chief Imam himself made an outburst, spoke publicly about the fact that he needed to have a solution about the very issues we had worked on. So, for 1 month consistently, there were a lot of people talking on what should be done, until I had the opportunity to be on TV. I spoke about the PPF project. I spoke about the plan. I spoke about the solutions and the recommendations we are giving, and I can tell you there was an overwhelming endorsement for that program. People felt that what we have done is workable, is achievable. The same people that in the beginning told us, why young people you want to waste your time, today appreciate what we have done. And that project, that recommendation today is the hope that many Muslim community and Muslim leaders have, that if the National Chief Imam should demise today, and we in Ghana always pray that Allah will give him a lot of life because he's such an amazing person. But if he demise today, we believe the work that the PPF project has done will be a very good basis for us to prevent any conflicts that will come out of that. Let me quickly share this for you to see. Now, just a minute.
Hit escape first, and then you have to.
Okay.
Hit escape.
Okay.
Escape button on the top left. Is the IT person down there? Is the IT person out there?
Okay. I just wanted you to see a copy of the organogram we did. After all this research, we sat down together as young people. We were able to identify the key dynamics and key institutions within the Muslim community, bearing in mind that Ghana is a secular state, multicultural and multi-religious nation. And we're able to put an organogram that can re-engineer and reorganize. So basically, this is what we did. I won't take much time just for you to see that. And we suggested one of the very key fundamental things we should do is to have National Council of Ulama. And this National Council of Ulama is supposed to have imams across the 10 regions of Ghana, imams from the various sects. And when we have that, that will become a very good, inclusive institution to resolve that problem. And one of the challenges we have is we are disorganized because the Muslim professional is different and the religious traditional setting is also different. So what we try to do in this organogram is to see how best we can bring the Muslim professional closer to the religious leaders to work in harmony. And the objective will be to achieve good education, good healthcare, So basically, thank you very much for listening to me. This is the story of the PPF project. Thank you.
You heard now from two young people some powerful stories. I mean, there are two things I want to take out of this from the many stories that you heard. One is that it doesn't take $1 million or $300,000 for a project, right? This was motivated, both stories was motivated not by money, but by cause. And they took the challenge on for free, using their own money to do this. The second idea is that they needed a champion, a mentor, a guide, someone who believes in them, to open a window or a door for them, or give them the key so they can open the door themselves. So as we think about our roles in our communities, what role do we play in this? So I just wanted you to think about that and see if you have any questions for Abdulsalam. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I actually have 2-3 questions. Okay, let's go. So I was confused. Who is putting all this pressure on Muslim students to convert into Christianity? It can't be Boko Haram, right? Is it like a government agency or independent, like Christian organizations? Who is doing that, first of all? Secondly, you mentioned the rise of Boko Haram in relation to Western hegemony that was sustained by colonial incentives in the past, and that is still fueled by capitalist and opportunist incentives of the Western world in third world countries today. I didn't know Boko Haram was such a factor in Ghana, because we often associate it with Nigeria. So if you could speak to that in terms of the balance of power institutions on a global level. And third question is, you mentioned a National Council of Ulama. which was also like existed in the Ottoman Empire a long time ago. So I was wondering, are those like imams educated people, or they just represent the community and they're just like accepted as like community leaders?
Okay, so that's very good. Let me just clarify something. Boko Haram doesn't have any influence in Ghana. I was just making a comparison that such challenges of Muslim students being discriminated in schools or the educational system being used to Christianize people was some of the reasons that Boko Haram gave, that they were protecting Muslims. That is why they call themselves Boko Haram. So they're saying that if the educational institution is meant probably to convert people, then the educational institution is around. So I was just basically giving a contextual explanation that if what happened in Ghana were to happen in Nigeria, probably it would have led to protracted violence. But in our setting, we were able to understand that it's a social problem and we can have a social solution to it without necessarily attaching it to religious divides. In terms of who is actually putting pressure on Muslim students, like I said, I don't want anybody to see this story as a Christian community is actually hostile to Islam or Muslims in Ghana. That is actually not the truth. We have a very good relationship, but it is a consequence of our historical records, because when the colonial masters came to Ghana, one of the tools they used was secular education to attract people and then give them Christianity. And so many of these schools, educational institutions in the beginning were owned by missionary houses, churches, and what have you. And every organization that builds a school or an institution has a latent objective. You get it? So it's a historical thing. It's become like a tradition.
So you cannot name a single organization or person?
There is no organization. It's more or less a tradition. If you go to the schools, there are specific time that it's time for Christian church service and everybody must go. But this is not entirely the case, because in some schools, organizations have even tried to allow Muslim students to have their time for worship and what have you. And consistently, Ghana as a nation has tried as much as possible to move away from that history. So in 1996, for example, there was a white paper that was given by the Deputy Minister of Education to all educational institutions, reenacting what is in the Constitution. And but it's a very difficult thing because it's social. It took a long time for us to get to that. And then, so it's not a single organization that has made it its objective to make it difficult for Muslim students. No, it is a social problem. And you know, change is difficult and change must be gradual. And we need a gradual approach to that. In relation to the Council of Ulama, I think in my book, The Way Forward for Muslims in Ghana, I did an analysis of the human resources we have in Ghana. We have basically 4 different types of human resources. The first one I call the religious traditional group, who learns, and in terms of education, it's quite important for us to put this into proper perspective. In Ghana, we had one sheikh who is called Sheikh Omar Ketikrachi. Now, if you read a lot of his writings, he is considered probably one of the first journalists Ghana had ever had. In the history of Ghana, there was a time where nobody could read and write except the Muslim scholars. The first history of Ghana was written in Arabic. So those people are called the traditional religious that did not have the secular education. Is not to indicate that they are not educated. They are highly educated. They could read and write. If they were to live in Arabic countries, probably they would fit. The only challenge they had was because they did not have secular education. So they are actually educated people. But in the context of Islam, religious knowledge is supreme. And so that is the first group. The second group are those who have educational experiences. They are professionals in line with secular education, but may not have very much knowledge in terms of Islam. Now the last group, which is the most preferred group, given this contextual explanation, is a group that has very good understanding of Islam as well as very good knowledge in terms of secular education. Now this is what we need. The last group also is a group that I cannot place in any one of these. But they are very important because they get involved into the menial jobs to support anybody through education and what have you. So what is a problem is if you are going to create any system, you need to identify these human resources and see how to place each and every one of them in the system. As per the context of Islam, religious knowledge is high, supreme. That is why you see that we kept the Council of Ulama there. But what we needed to do is to bring the professionals together closer to the imams and let the imams know that as per the current situation, there are certain functions and certain needs of the community. Because of the challenge you have with secular education, you are unable to handle it effectively, and that is why we needed the professionals to come closer. What has happened in the past is, because of vacuum, the imams may not be able to respond to issue of education, health, and what have you effectively. Muslim professionals have seen the vacuum, and they have also created organizations and institutions to respond to that. But that has led to also antagonism. So what we need now is collaboration through that structure. Thank you.
Let me see if there are two more questions, and we'll take two, and go ahead.
Abdulsalam, thank you very much. I think you are brilliant. You're doing a great job, and barakallah feek. I think your effort and your colleague is commendable. And I think what is needed is perhaps, since the ulama, they play a very major role in shaping the value system of society. And the fact that we have seen, like in Pakistan, a shift toward radicalization, perhaps there's a need for a reorientation or re-education of the ulama, okay, to play a more positive role. And I think that it would be worthwhile the investment in such re-educating the imams, okay, to be a contributing factor, a positive factor into shaping Islam of the future, and not of the past. So I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, one question.
Abdulsalam, thank you again.
Thank you.
What, there's something that sparked your to do this, and it wasn't Mustafa. Mustafa was the young man that died under whatever circumstances. But what sparked you? There's a spark inside you that caused you to pursue this. What was it?
Yeah, I think it's spirituality. Spirituality for me is the defining factor that can make anybody sober and want to do something violently. So I think spirituality is what is within me that is getting me on this activity.
Any other quick questions? To me, as I reflect on these two stories, thank you.
Thank you.
To me, as I reflect on these stories,